Moving on, staying with the earnings season, Godrej Properties also reported its numbers during the market hours, little late on Friday. Currently, the stock is up about 1% or so, but on Friday, the stock went down by about 3.5% because the company's total income went up by 39% in the fourth quarter, but their net profit actually fell down by about 9% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. We spoke to MD and CEO at Godrej Properties Limited, Pirojsha Godrej, and when we asked him about the performance in the fourth quarter, this is what he had to say.
Yeah, great to be with you. The fourth quarter has been a very successful one for Godrej Properties. Our total income, as you rightly pointed out, is up nearly 40%. Quarter on quarter, that number actually goes to 70%. One of the major successes we've had in the quarter is on the sales front, where we've actually registered the company's highest ever quarterly sales. For the first time as a company, we sold more than 1,000 crores worth of real estate in Q4. So that's been a great accomplishment. We also added 4 new projects to our portfolio in 4 different cities this quarter. One of the things that we also were very successful at is selling space in one of our older commercial projects. While this is a loss-making project for us and has actually reduced the quarter's margins, it's actually been a very successful outcome because we've been wanting to sell space in this project for quite some time, but it has been a challenge given how poor the commercial markets in Kolkata have been. So that's actually a very positive development that has slightly affected, however, our quarterly margins.
Can you also elaborate on the sales bookings made in the residential as well as the commercial space separately?
Sure. I think I'll talk about 2 or 3 of the key developments that led to that best ever sales performance. One was we had a very successful launch of a new project here in Mumbai, in Chembur, a project called Godrej Central, where we managed to sell over 500 crores worth of inventory in the quarter. We also had another launch in Bangalore in Whitefield of a project called Godrej United, which was again a very successful launch for us, where we sold over 200,000 square feet despite this project getting launched towards the end of the quarter. And the third key contributor was this commercial project in Kolkata that I mentioned, Godrej Waterside, where we sold about 170 crore worth of space in that project.
But your profit in the fourth quarter has gone down by 9% on a year-on-year basis. Why?
Yeah, well, it was a couple of things. One is we did have an extraordinary one-time item in the corresponding quarter of the previous year, but also these sales in this commercial project I mentioned did incur some losses for us. So, but again, that is a very positive development because we've unlocked capital from that project which we can redeploy elsewhere. But I think those are the 2 reasons why year-on-year there's a slight decline. If you look, however, at quarter-on-quarter, there's actually a 30% increase in net profit.
And what were your margins like?
Yeah, the margins, as I mentioned, were quite weak, largely because of this one project on the commercial front in Kolkata. If you remove that project from the analysis, our margins for the quarter, our EBITDA margin was about 39%, which would be about the highest margin we've had in the last couple of years.
Going ahead, what are your plans for margin expansion in both residential as well as commercial space?
Yeah, well, you know, we don't give any specific forward-looking guidance in the real estate sector. Sometimes it's hard to know what's going to happen tomorrow, much less for the full year. But I think what we can say is that, you know, certainly we're looking forward to FY15 being a much better year than FY14. Clearly, I think from a macro perspective, almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong in FY14. Growth was at about its lowest levels. Interest rates were moving upwards. Regulatory approvals had significant challenges in many markets, especially here in Mumbai. So I think, you know, hopefully we won't see any of that this year. We do expect that with the new government getting formed in a couple of weeks, that the focus will be on economic growth. We do expect, hopefully, inflation to come under control and interest rates to also improve later this year. And I think the combined impact of that could lead to a huge sentiment improvement for the real estate sector. And we think, given all the new projects we've been adding, given the new launches that we've already had and the ones we have planned for the year, that FY15 should be a good year for the company.
Can you also tell us about the new projects that you're expected to roll out in the next few quarters?
Yeah, I think for the year as a whole, we have about 15 new projects or new phases of existing projects that will be launched. And these are projects in a variety of cities. We just launched last week a project in Gurgaon in NCR, which has done extremely well. Before that, we'd already this year launched something in Pune that's going well. We have important launches here in Mumbai later this year. We have this a new redevelopment project that we'll be launching. We have new inventory in our Vikhroli projects that will be coming on board. Along with several other projects in other parts of the country. So I think we've got a full launch calendar ahead of us for the current year.
And clearly this is the election season. The D-Day is not very far away from now. What are your expectations from the new government in this particular sector?
Well, I think there's a lot that can be done for the sector specifically, and I think the most important thing that could be done is some kind of streamlining of the regulatory approval system, some kind of greater visibility and clarity on the system, because I think the kind of regulatory hurdles that real estate developers are faced with today is very unfortunate, both for the companies but equally so for consumers who end up paying higher prices for real estate because of the increased risk of projects, because of the increased timelines of projects. So I think from a sector-specific situation, the number one thing that the government, both the central government and the state governments need to look at is how approvals can be streamlined and made more simple. I think, however, that more important than real estate specific issues is just general macroeconomic factors like GDP growth and like interest rates. And I do expect a lot of focus from the new government on putting an emphasis on getting the growth engine moving at full speed again. Obviously, I don't think this sector can do well if GDP growth is at 4.5% as it has been over the past year. So I think that's perhaps the number one thing that can benefit the sector. And if interest rates start coming down later this year, that will also be of great benefit to real estate developers.
That was Mr. Pirojsha Godrej talking about the earnings posted by Godrej Properties. In big earnings to watch out for today, we've got Canara Bank.